The crystalline halls of the Deathworld Council had seen many species arrive for their inaugural meeting. Most came trembling, their ships polished to perfection, desperate to prove they belonged among the galaxy's apex predators. The Karathi had arrived with their acid-proof hulls gleaming. The Vexhi displayed their radiation shielding like badges of honor. Even the mighty Zalarians, who thrived in 10G gravity, had presented themselves with careful diplomatic precision. But humanity? Humanity arrived late, unannounced, and covered in gore. Ambassador Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resilience, watching the massive council station grow larger in the view screen. Behind him, his crew worked in grim silence, still processing what they'd been through. The ship's hull bore fresh scars, not from battle, but from something far worse. "Sir," Lieutenant Rivera called out, her voice tight. "The council is hailing us. They're concerned about our appearance." Kane glanced at the external camera feeds. The Resilience looked like it had been through hell. Organic matter clung to the hull in frozen chunks. What might have been tentacles or perhaps intestinal tract draped across their primary communications array. The ship's formerly gray exterior was now stained a rusty brown-red. Pieces of chitin and bone had embedded themselves in the armor plating. One of the observation windows was completely obscured by what appeared to be a massive eyeball, frozen in death. "Tell them we'll explain inside," Kane said, adjusting his uniform. It too bore stains that wouldn't come out. Dark patches covered his sleeves where alien blood had soaked through. "And Rivera? Don't clean the ship. Let them see." "Sir?" Rivera's eyebrows raised. "Protocol states A." "Protocol didn't account for what we just went through," Kane interrupted. "Sometimes the best first impression is an honest one." The docking bay fell silent as the Resilience settled into place. Dozens of alien delegates, each representing species that thrived on worlds deemed uninhabitable by galactic standards, watched in horrified fascination. The Karathi's acid-secreting skin bubbled with anxiety. The crystalline sheen harmonized in frequencies of distress. Athurian delegates' toxic spines rattled against its carapace in alarm. The ship's docking clamps engaged with a wet squelch as they crushed through a layer of organic debris. Something that might have been viscera dripped onto the pristine deck below. Kane and his delegation of 5 descended the ramp. Their magnetic boots clicked against the metal, leaving bloody footprints in their wake. They hadn't had time to clean those either. Dr. Tanaka still had tissue samples in her field kit. Engineer Morrison's tools were caked with matter that defied easy classification. Even their youngest member, communications specialist Adams, bore the marks of their encounter, his hands stained purple from emergency field surgery. "By the void," whispered Zektal, the Vexhi representative. "What happened to them?" The human delegation walked through the crowds, heads high, eyes forward. They'd been summoned here to prove humanity belonged among the Deathworld species. They hadn't expected to do so quite like this. But as Kane met the horrified gazes of the galaxy's most dangerous species, he couldn't help but think perhaps this was exactly how humanity needed to arrive. The council chamber was a marvel of engineering designed to accommodate species from worlds that would kill most galactic citizens in seconds. Sections of varying gravity, atmosphere, and radiation levels created a patchwork of environmental zones. The floor itself was a work of art, transparent aluminum revealing the swirling nebula below, reminding all present they stood in the void between stars. At its center sat the circle of speakers where each Deathworld species had a representative. Kane took humanity's assigned position, a small platform with Earth-normal conditions. The environmental field shimmered as he crossed its threshold, adjusting to human parameters: 1G gravity, 21% oxygen, 101.3 kilopascals pressure. Around him, the greatest predators in the galaxy sat in judgment. The Karathi delegates' 4 eyes fixed on the blood beneath Kane's fingernails. The Zalarians' massive form shifted, their bioarmor clicking with interest. In the high-radiation section, the Vexhi pulsed with colors beyond human visual spectrum. Each species displayed their superiority openly. The Thurians' toxic spines glistened with fresh venom. The sheen sang in harmonics that could shatter molecular bonds. The Gorvoks sat in their methane-ammonia atmosphere, their silicon-based forms impervious to temperatures that would vaporize carbon-based life. Humans of Earth, the Council Primus began, its voice a harmonious blend of frequencies designed to be understood by all present. The Primus was of the Etherian species, beings who lived in the corona of stars. Its form was a controlled plasma field, magnetic bottles containing fusion reactions that served as both body and mind. You were summoned to prove your species' worthiness to join the Deathworld Council. Your arrival is unprecedented. Kane noticed how the word unprecedented rippled through the universal translators, each species version carrying subtle notes of disgust, fear, and fascination. My apologies for our appearance, Kane said, his voice carrying across the chamber. Behind him, Dr. Tanaka quietly scraped something organic from her boot. We came as soon as we received your summons. We didn't have time to stop and clean up after. After what? Interrupted Thraka the Karathi, acid dripping from his mandibles. The drops hissed against the specially treated floor, leaving small craters. What manner of conflict delayed the mighty humans? Pirates? Stellar phenomenon? Or did you stop to conquer some lesser species for sport? A ripple of dark amusement passed through the chamber. Humanity's violent history was well documented. Their application to the Council had included detailed records of their wars, their weapons, their casual relationship with nuclear fire. The Battle of Titan Colony, where humans had cracked a moon rather than surrender it. The Mars Rebellion ended with controlled antimatter detonations. Earth's own Third World War, which had killed 1 billion and led to humanity's dark age. No, Kane said simply. We were feeding. The chamber went silent. Even the Sheen's harmonics ceased. Feeding? The Primus leaned forward, its plasma form flickering with curiosity. Stellar prominences danced across its surface. Elaborate. Kane gestured to his second-in-command, Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display from her datapad. The image that appeared made several delegates recoil. It was a creature, if it could be called that. A mass of writhing flesh the size of a small moon, covered in tentacles, eyes, and mouths. Space around it was littered with debris from ships it had consumed. The holographic display shifted, showing tactical footage from the Resilience. The timestamp showed 72 hours ago, recorded from multiple angles by the fleet's sensor arrays. The human fleet, 5 ships in total, approached the Leviathan with what could only be described as casual confidence. Each vessel bore scars from previous encounters, their hulls a patchwork of repairs and modifications. You must understand, Kane explained, watching the alien delegates' reactions, humans didn't become apex predators on Earth by running from large prey. We became apex predators by figuring out how to eat everything. The footage showed the true scale of the monster. Tactical overlays measured it at nearly 3,000 kilometers in diameter. Its skin writhed with 1,000 mouths, each one large enough to swallow a destroyer whole. Tentacles the size of space stations whipped through the void, leaving trails of bioluminescent ichor. Eyes, hundreds of them, tracked movement with predatory intelligence. On screen, the human ships coordinated with disturbing efficiency. They moved in patterns that seemed random until the tactical overlay revealed the truth. They were using ancient persistence hunting techniques, adapted for three-dimensional space. The ships harried the Leviathan like ancient wolves, bringing down a mammoth, darting in to tear chunks from its flesh before retreating from its thrashing tentacles. Your weapons. The Zalarian delegate rumbled, its voice like grinding stone. They're not standard energy beams. Molecular destabilizers, Tanaka confirmed, pulling up weapon specifications. Specifically calibrated to break down organic tissue while keeping it fresh. We developed them after the Centauri food crisis. Why destroy what you can harvest? The weapons fired in precise bursts, each beam tuned to different frequencies. One severed neural connections, paralyzing sections of the creature. Another liquefied fat deposits for easy collection. A third acted as a massive cauterizing blade, both cutting and sealing to prevent spoilage. The Vex High representative's radiation levels spiked in what might have been discussed. You're not destroying it. You're butchering it. Waste not, want not, Rivera added from behind Kane. That thing ate 3 colonies. 20,000 humans. We figured turnabout was fair play. The footage continued. The human ships worked in perfect synchronization, each attack calculated to harvest maximum biomass while avoiding the creature's defenses. Smaller collection vessels, modified cargo haulers, darted between the warships, gathering the chunks of flesh in massive electromagnetic nets. The operation was seamless, practiced. Notice the patterns. Dr. Tanaka highlighted sections of the footage. We're targeting specific organs first. Redundant nervous systems to reduce its reaction time. Digestive sacs that contain pre-processed nutrients. The eyes, they're a delicacy on the frontier worlds and contain unique proteins. One ship, the US Predator, took a glancing blow from a tentacle. Its hull crumpled, atmosphere venting. The crew's response was immediate, not retreat, but acceleration. The damaged ship rammed into the tentacle, detonating shaped charges that severed it completely. Even while conducting emergency repairs, they deployed collection drones to harvest the severed appendage. The blood on your ships, the Primus observed. It's from this creature? Some of it, Kane admitted. The rest is from processing. Do you have any idea how much meat a moon-sized organism yields? We've got enough protein to feed a dozen colonies for a year. The chamber erupted in multiple conversations, each species discussing in their own language. The Karathi clicked their mandibles in rapid percussion. The Sheen's harmonics reached frequencies that made several delegates wince. The Gorvok released pheromones that their translators interpreted as deep concern. The noise was overwhelming until the Primus called for order, its plasma form brightening to attention-getting levels, casting stark shadows throughout the chamber. This is unprecedented, it admitted, stellar flares dancing across its surface. Most Deathworld species survive despite their environment. You seem to consume yours. Adapt or die, Kane said with a shrug. Humans chose a third option: adapt, kill, and eat. It's worked pretty well for us so far. Thraka the Karathi stood, his forearms spread wide. His exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's lights, acid secretions creating a faint mist around him. Pretty words and old footage prove nothing. If humanity claims to be apex predators, let them demonstrate. I challenge the human representative to single combat. The chamber buzzed with excitement. Single combat was a traditional way to settle disputes in the council, though rarely invoked. The last recorded challenge had been 40 cycles ago between a Zolarian and a Thurian. It had lasted 6 seconds. The Thurian's toxins hadn't even penetrated the Zolarian's first dermal layer. The Karathi were feared warriors. Their acid blood, reinforced exoskeleton, and redundant organs made them nearly unkillable. They could survive decapitation for up to an hour, their distributed nervous system maintaining combat effectiveness. Their home world's 2.3 gravity had given them incredible strength and bone density. Kane stood slowly, his movements deliberate. I accept, but I invoke substitution rights. My champion will face yours. He turned to his delegation. Rivera? Lieutenant Rivera stepped forward, cracking her knuckles. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. She was small by human standards, barely 1.7 meters tall, lean muscle over a compact frame. Next to the 3-meter Karathi, she looked like a child. Several delegates made sounds their translators interpreted as amusement or pity. Throck's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. This tiny thing is your champion? I've eaten prey larger than her. Rivera smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the kind of smile humans had worn when they first discovered fire, when they first sharpened stones, when they first looked at a mammoth and thought dinner. I haven't eaten in 6 hours. I'm hungry. The arena formed quickly, a neutral zone with standard atmosphere and gravity. The floor was a smart matter surface that could adapt to different combat styles, currently set to a firm but yielding consistency. Medical stations stood ready at the perimeter. The council valued its members too much to allow deaths during challenges. Usually, no weapons were permitted, only natural abilities. Throck's seconds applied fresh acid to his claws, the caustic substance sizzling against his natural armor. The smell of dissolving metal filled the air. They checked his joints, ensuring full mobility in all 4 arms. His primary eyes focused on Rivera while his secondary set maintained peripheral awareness. Rivera did a few stretches, her movements casual, almost lazy. She rolled her shoulders, touched her toes, twisted her spine until it popped. The normalcy of it was somehow more unsettling than any threat display. Begin, the Primus commanded. Throck charged immediately, his 4 arms spread wide to grab the small human. Rivera waited until the last second, then dropped and rolled between his legs. As she passed, her hand shot up, fingers finding the soft joint where his middle left arm connected to his torso. There was a wet pop. Throck screamed as Rivera came up behind him, his arm hanging useless. Green blood, acidic enough to eat through steel, sprayed from the wound. Some of it hit Rivera's face. She didn't flinch. First mistake, she said conversationally, circling the wounded Karathi. You assume size matters. On Earth, the deadliest predators are often the smallest. Viruses, bacteria, mosquitoes kill more humans than any large predator. Throck spun, slashing with his remaining arms. Rivera ducked, weaved, always just out of reach. She was studying him, watching how he moved, learning his patterns. Second mistake, she continued, was thinking your acid blood would stop me. Humans have been playing with chemistry since we discovered fire. We put acid in our food for flavor. Throck charged immediately, his 4 arms spread wide to grab the small human. His species had evolved as ambush predators capable of explosive bursts of speed. The distance between them vanished in a heartbeat. Rivera waited until the last possible microsecond, then dropped and rolled between his legs. As she passed, her hand shot up, fingers finding the soft joint where his middle left arm connected to his torso. There was a wet pop. Throck screamed as Rivera came up behind him, his arm hanging useless. Green blood, acidic enough to eat through steel, sprayed from the wound. Some of it hit Rivera's face. She didn't flinch. The acid sizzled against her skin, leaving red welts that she ignored completely. First mistake, she said conversationally, circling the wounded Karathi. Her breathing hadn't even quickened. You assume size matters. On Earth, the deadliest predators are often the smallest. Viruses, bacteria, mosquitoes kill more humans than any large predator. Throck spun, slashing with his remaining arms. His claws whistled through the air with enough force to decapitate most species. Rivera ducked, weaved, always just out of reach. She was studying him, watching how he moved, learning his patterns. Her eyes tracked his muscle tensions, predicting each strike before it began. Second mistake, she continued, sidestepping a vicious uppercut, was thinking your acid blood would stop me. Humans have been playing with chemistry since we discovered fire. We put acid in our food for flavor. Citrus. Vinegar. Our stomachs produce hydrochloric acid strong enough to dissolve metal. The fight had been going for 10 minutes. Throck was down to 2 functional arms, multiple joints dislocated with surgical precision. His breathing came in ragged gasps, his redundant respiratory systems struggling to keep up. Rivera had taken hits, her uniform was full of acid burns, one eye swollen shut, her left shoulder clearly dislocated. But she kept moving, kept talking. You know what makes humans special? She asked, dodging another desperate swing. It's not our strength, not our speed. It's that we're pursuit predators. She backed away, letting Throck advance. The Karathi was breathing hard, his injuries taking their toll. Green blood pooled beneath him, his healing factors overwhelmed. But Rivera looked fresh, despite her wounds. Her breathing was controlled, efficient. Her remaining eye tracked him with the patience of a hunter who knew the end was inevitable. We're not built to kill quickly, she explained to the watching chamber. The delegates leaned forward, fascinated despite their horror. We're built to outlast. To pursue. To wear down our prey until it can't run anymore. Throck stumbled, his legs shaking. Rivera was there instantly, another joint popping under her grip. The Karathi collapsed to 3 limbs, then 2. Each time he tried to rise, she was there, taking another piece of his mobility. Our ancestors would chase animals for hours. Days sometimes. Just walking, jogging, letting the prey tire itself out. She circled the fallen Karathi like a shark. We hunted mammoths by following them until they died of exhaustion. We're the only predators on Earth that sweat efficiently. We can run in heat that would kill other hunters. We don't stop. We just keep coming. 2 hours later, the council had restored order. Throck had been taken for medical treatment, his pride more wounded than his body. The Karathi's regenerative abilities would heal his physical injuries within days, but the memory of being systematically dismantled by a creature half his size would last much longer. Rivera sat with the human delegation, calmly eating from a protein pack despite the acid burns covering her arms. She'd refused medical treatment, insisting the burns would add character. The demonstration was illuminating, the Primus said carefully, its plasma form flickering through spectrums of unease. But it raises concerning questions. If humanity's predatory instincts are so pronounced, how can we trust you won't turn them on other council species? Kane stood to address the chamber. Behind him, his delegation sat at attention, Dr. Tanaka still making notes on her datapad about Karathi physiology, Morrison cleaning his tools with methodical precision, Adams reviewing communication logs. They looked like what they were, predators momentarily at rest. You're afraid of us? It wasn't a question. Multiple delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Thurian spines rattled. The Sheen's harmonics dropped to subsonic frequencies. Even the mighty Zolarians adjusted their stance, bio-armor plates sliding into defensive positions. Good, King continued. You should be. Every species in this chamber should fear every other species here. That's what makes us Deathworlders. We come from planets that try to kill us every day. We've evolved past the luxury of trust. He gestured to the assembled delegates. The Karathi secrete acid that can melt through most known alloys. The Vexhi emit lethal radiation that would cook unprotected organisms from the inside out. The Zolarians could crush any of us without thinking. The Gorvok breathe an atmosphere that's poison to 90% of known life. But we're all here, aren't we? Working together? Your point, the Primus asked, stellar prominences dancing across its form. Apex predators don't hunt apex predators unless they have to, Kane said. It's inefficient, dangerous, stupid. Humans learned that lesson millions of years ago. It's why we developed pack hunting, cooperation, society. Dr. Tanaka pulled up new holographic displays. Images of Earth, not the pristine blue marble of ancient times, but the current Earth. Cities spanning continents, each one home to billions. Orbital habitats spinning in careful formation. The terraformed moon, its surface etched with vast agricultural domes. Mars, no longer red but green with engineered life. We nearly destroyed our world, she said, her voice carrying the weight of history. Hunted species to extinction. The passenger pigeon. The dodo. The northern white rhino. We poisoned our air and water. The Pacific waste gyre. The Amazon burning. We came within decades of making Earth uninhabitable. The images shifted. Restoration projects spanning centuries. Revived species grazing in rewilded plains. The Great Barrier Reef, rebuilt with engineered coral that could survive in warmer waters. Massive atmospheric processors pulling carbon from the air. The last nuclear waste being loaded into solar disposal units. But we learned, Tanaka continued. We adapted. Not just to survive our world, but to save it. To save the things we'd almost hunted to death. Because humans are capable of something most apex predators aren't. Which is, the Etherian Primus leaned forward, its plasma core pulsing with curiosity. The vote was called. Each species would cast their judgment on humanity's admission to the Deathworld Council. The human delegation waited in silence as, one by one, the votes were cast. The Karathi voted first. Despite, or perhaps because of their defeat, they voted yes. They are predators, Throck said from his medical chair. Worthy predators. The Vexhai voted yes. Any species that turns a system killer into lunch deserves respect. The Zalarians rumbled their approval. They understand strength comes in many forms. On it went. Some voted no. The Sheen found humanity's violence too chaotic, too unpredictable. But most recognized what Kane had tried to show them. Humanity wasn't just another predator species. They were something far more dangerous. Predators who had learned to think beyond the hunt. Finally, the Primus spoke. The vote is concluded. By a margin of 7-3, humanity is welcomed into the Deathworld Council. The chamber erupted in formal congratulations. Kane accepted them with grace, but his mind was already elsewhere. The Leviathan they'd killed was just one of many threats in the galaxy. Humanity had proven they belonged among the apex predators. Now came the hard part, proving they could be more than just another monster in the dark. As the ceremony concluded, Rivera approached Kane. Sir, the fleet's asking what to do with the remaining Leviathan meat. Kane considered. Around them, delegates from 10 different Deathworld species mingled, each a predator in their own right, each a potential ally or enemy. Set up a feast, he said finally. Invite everyone. Nothing brings predators together like sharing a kill. Rivera grinned. Yes, sir. I'll tell the cooks to make it spicy. Really show them what human cuisine can do. As the human delegation prepared to leave the chamber, the Primus called out one last time. Ambassador Kane, a question, if you would. Kane paused. The blood on your ships. You never did explain all of it. The Leviathan was killed in space. Its blood would have crystallized. But some of what we see is still fresh. Kane's expression didn't change. The Leviathan wasn't traveling alone. It had parasites, scavenger species that followed in its wake, feeding on its scraps. And they tried to contest our kill. The Primus flickered, its plasma form dimming with understanding. I see. And these parasites? Kane shrugged. Like I said, we were hungry. He left the chamber, his footsteps still leaving bloody prints on the pristine floor. Behind him, the Deathworld Council sat in contemplative silence, each member reassessing what they thought they knew about the newest predators to join their ranks. Outside, the human fleet waited. 5 ships, scarred and bloodied, carrying enough processed meat to feed worlds. They were predators, yes. Monsters, perhaps. But they were monsters who fed their pack. And in the cold depths of space, where death waited in every shadow, that made them the most dangerous predators of all. Epilogue. The message. 6 months after humanity's admission to the Deathworld Council, every member species received the same transmission. It came from the edge of known space, from a human exploration vessel called the UES Curiosity. The message was simple: a set of coordinates, a brief description of what they'd found, and a question. We've encountered something bigger than the last one. Much bigger. The colony worlds in Sector 7 have gone dark. Traditional weapons are ineffective. It appears to be heading toward the galactic core. We're gonna try to eat it. Anyone hungry? The responses came quickly. The Karathi sent 2 warships. The Vex-High contributed their best tracking technology. Even the Crystalline Sheen, despite their earlier objections, offered their harmonic weapons for the hunt. Because that's what humanity had brought to the Deathworld Council. Not just another predator to fear, but a simple truth. In a galaxy full of monsters, the best way to survive wasn't to run or hide. It was to become the apex predator, and then teach others to hunt beside you. The hunt was on, and this time humanity wouldn't be feeding alone.